Awesome. So hi, everyone. Welcome to Metagov seminar. Today is Wednesday. What is the date? September 4th. It's noon Eastern time. We do these seminars weekly. This is an opportunity to have a researcher in the governance space generally present us. We invite folks to propose others to come and share their research. So today we have Kera, who was recommended by Coraline out of MK, who saw Denisa's work at a conference and was like, oh my gosh, you need to have Denisa come to Metagov seminar to speak all about agent-based simulations, experimental governance sandboxes, and it was a no-brainer. So thank you all for coming. The process for this session will be about a 20-ish minute or so presentation, and we have a little bit of a demo. So we've given Denisa a full 20 minutes to do presentation and demo for us, and we'll have time for a Q&A at the end. Throughout the presentation, please feel free to type your questions in the chat. And so you can remember them by the time we get to the end of the presentation, and we can ask Denisa our questions. And please wait your turn. So I will curate the questions and the order list that they come in, so that we'll give folks, an opportunity to ask and get their questions answered, and then we'll move on to the next question. So I'll be in charge of facilitating that about 20 minutes from now. So yeah, with that, I introduced Denisa Kera, who's going to be giving us a talk about their research and a demo as well. So this is experimental governance sandboxes and LLM-based agent-based simulations. Welcome, Denisa.
Yeah. Thank you, Val. It's a real pleasure, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of the previous presentations, which I didn't manage to see in real time. So I'm really excited. I love the term meta-governance because I feel it fits well with some of the agenda I have. So I'll start sharing my screen, and maybe I will actually start with a small demo why did I start doing this? Maybe it will explain why did I start doing these agent-based simulations. I hope you see it. You see my Visual Studio? And
see it.
It's a very simple, let me put this away. So it's a very simple, for me, it started with like this very simple experiment where we basically created some form of a slime, you hear well, slime oracle, where the AI is preparing regulation for itself. And it has a very simple, like a prompt. Basically, the prompt is that it's some form of an oracle, and it's using traditional folk wisdom, global traditional folk proverbs, to give us some rules for the AI, how AI should behave. And basically, I hope you will hear the sound. I did say that it needs to speak, so let's see. Okay, now the issue is, I see the issue is that it's opening a website, but I'll keep it. Let's see what happens. Maybe I need to share the whole screen.
Don't throw away the old bucket until you know whether the new one holds water. Swedish proverb regulation. Ensure all AI updates are reversible until the new version proves it can dance a tango without stepping on toes.
I don't know, did you hear it?
Yeah,
okay, cool.
yeah.
And it's basically this. It takes like a traditional proverb and just makes it into like some funny statement. And I'll just move now to my presentation to explain why did I do this and what does it have to do with governance. View slideshow. So now we'll have it. So this is it. It has a weird name, this whole presentation, but this is what I basically showed. Something we started doing like last year. You see the slime, and the slime is basically a button that triggers the Python script to give you like some beautiful idea from this regulatory oracle. Question is, this is another one I actually liked. It says that if an AI chatbot says something stupid, it shall remain silent for 2 minutes or pay a fine of €2. So I think some of these like recommendations for AI regulation it was giving were pretty useful. But why did I do it for the first time? The reason was basically to learn, to imagine some different type of a regulation. And my claim today will be that it also serves this purpose of catharsis. It's like a funny moment. It's like some emotional discharge that happens. So what did we learn through this with my buddies that I'll introduce in a minute? What did we learn? We learned what a system and user is in terms of these like prompts and the ways you communicate with the model. And of course, this introduces the idea of an agent, that actually all communication with this new beast called large language models, AI, machine learning applications, whatever we will call them right now, is basically some form of a role playing. And this got me excited, like these like funny statements you're able to tease out, and everyone that was like playing with this probably has like some similar funny prompts and examples. So it looks funny. It was about finding out also how to give a body to the model through the slime. The slime was actually physical interaction with the model. So it's something very pleasant about it. So where this project led is to something that looked a bit more useful. And that's maybe the project Coraline saw. I'm not certain. It's a project which we published. I'll send you the link to the presentation because there will be some things I will not manage to cover. Basically, it was the first experience that you can give a role. You can give a role of a stakeholder, for example, and give a task, of course. What do you want the model to do with a piece of text? So what we did with my group of colleagues and friends, basically, we used an agent supporting open source model agenda to rewrite the EU AI Act like a year ago, when there was this very scary period that they wanted to suppress open source models, which is actually something in regulations that bothers me personally. As we see now with California, this like a new proposal is going in that direction too. And it was surprising. So, you know, we told it, we did it on ChatGPT. We didn't use any Python scripts, anything, but we kind of introduced passages from the EU AI Act, which we wanted first to identify the agenda and rewrite these passages to fit the agenda of someone who is into open science, open culture, blah, blah, like the good guy. And it was quite surprising that he did a good job in two ways. First of all, it gave the right format to the feedback you need to give when there are these consultation processes with proposing the regulation, but also it identified some interesting ideas how such community level oversight of a model could look like. So here it proposes, it identified passages that are a bit unclear, ambiguous, and then it's like told us how with our agenda of an open source stakeholder, we can rewrite the regulation. So in some strange way, it democratizes it enables public engagement in the regulatory processes. And I decided, okay, let's go full way into that direction. And I started to explore more these agent-based interactions. And then it, of course, once you create one agent, you want to create more agents. And here is like some recent project actually that I did with a new collaborator, Lorenzo Cavallon, who is a science post student. And we went together to this really fantastic governance course by the AI Safety, I forgot what is their names. They do this 12-week course. And as part of their course, this was our project. We used the AI agent-to-agent simulations to simulate an influence campaign on hypersonic weapons, and also how such evil bot will interact with. We created a persona of a woman, like a housewife from Napoli, and it was a lot of fun. The model at one point starts speaking in Italian. Of course, there are some surprising and fun parts, but also it gave us some useful feedback in terms of how even a complete amateur nowadays can do like an evil influence campaign online and create a panic or push some agenda. So these are examples of projects I work on. So now what is this for a research? Since I'm an academic, I describe it as research through design that is focused on policy and governance. It's part of a book which I wrote, which explains it in a much more complex context of other technologies and some long-term projects I have. The book also has a bot which you can chat and discuss. Sometimes it's surprising even for me what it says. But if I could summarize this approach to research, or this approach to governance also, is from the more common research agenda, where you don't want to create a theory without a model for prediction, because that's the golden standard of a good theory. My approach is more like, I don't use or create theory without a prototype, and not because I want to predict something, but because I want to support participation. So why is this participation important for me? First of all, it's some form of agency over the future that I'm interested in. And I don't care if it's AI, blockchain, or other technology, but for me, the technology and prototyping is a way we decide about the future. So I do want that process to be a bit more democratic and open, of course. Actually, I don't want this guy. And then in terms of something I do, which is science, technology, and society studies, we are really interested in how we can place the work on the ethics, regulation, values, and politics early in the R&D phase. So it doesn't come after someone develops something in the lab. So that was basically my focus. And now, what does participation mean? I will show it on this. On one side, you see my official academic career, which it's not so impressive because I'm still on some junior position, but I don't care. I always did what I liked. That explains it. But on this side here, and that's the part I'm very proud of, I was always member of different hacker spaces, citizen science, open science communities. A lot of my research is about Indonesian open science and citizen science. So I was always interested in these, like in the form of public engagement that happens outside the official structure. And maybe like that explains why the participation is also an important part. So the simulations I will show, and because I'm a philosopher, you'll see also my philosophical agenda in this, is connected to a work we did in the last 2 years, basically with the Tel Aviv makerspace, where I hang out often, and then at Bar-Ilan University, where I run something called Design and Policy Lab. And also I have collaborators from Czech Republic, because I'm originally from Czech Republic. We did some workshops, some community bottom-up, exploring this idea of bottom-up community regulation. And I kind of settled with this theme, exploratory sandbox, because it is like Sandboxes is a policy tool everyone is obsessing over. It's part of the EU AI Act and so on. So this is basically my agenda. I want to support some form of a public agency over the future. And I claim that the means to do it is this experience of catharsis, of this, I call it a surprise, of, facing some fears or facing some impossible situation, some extremes, and kind of dealing with that and finding some resolution over it. It's a very theatrical experience, of course, but I think that's what the models enable. So it's about this making future together over prototypes to figure out the regulations, divisions of power, oversight, public good, adaptation by experiencing the extremes, by experiencing the conflict also, by experiencing some unsettling things. So, and it's part of this negotiating mutual understanding without demanding mutual goals. So it's not about finding some final unity. It's more about settling on something, experimenting in making collectives also, which is a text I really like by Balmer and Calvert, which are scholars working a lot with synthetic biology. So what are these experiments we did? Of course, every hackerspace or many hackerspaces want to have their own stable diffusion server to do like porn, I'm kidding, to kind of have a free range of prompts and decide how they will work with this infrastructure. I also work with some government bodies, because in Czech Republic, I'm the alternate national representative appointed by the Czech Ministry of, it has a long name, it's a bit meaningless. I enjoy working with people from the government, but they're a bit slow, honestly. So I'm not certain I should even put this, but yeah, we are trying to create some form of exploratory sandbox that will be much more public and open than the sandboxes that are proposed. And then what I want to focus today on are these simulations between agents, and I use it for all kinds of purposes like mock judicial trials, AI future deliberation. I think that's what I'll show today. Influence campaigns. I have this new thing about gossip. So I make agents that gossip together just to understand how awkward they are or where it is. And what my original idea of the presentation was this, to explain why I'm doing this. What do I see so troubling about the AI regulations that we need this more engaging public engagement in these forms of different approach to regulation. So I'll explain. So this will be the philosophical part. Maybe I'll skip it quickly, but I want you to be aware that I have this larger agenda in this. Maybe more interesting for us are these present challenges I see in policy, and why do I think experimental governance rather than risk-based or command and control-based governance is a better approach. And then I'll show how I imagine such sandbox, and I'll demo at the end these agent-to-agent interactions. So why do I do this research? I'm really upset maybe, or like I'm surprised that there is this like a persistent idea that we need to automatize governance, that the better governance is something that will happen automatically in a sense. So all these ideas of smart contracts, consensus mechanisms, DAOs, or what Zuboff calls uncontracts. It's not that I want to say that's exactly Zuboff's uncontracts, but what I want to point out is that these ideas that we will create a system in which it will not be possible to cheat, is this idea of something that will happen by design, by compulsion, how Zuboff shows it, and she uses Las Vegas as an example of such design. So what I want to say for the beginning is, it's not actually, it's not a new idea. It's actually a very old idea. That basically our idea of governance and contracts was, it always had this tendency of ending up in some form of a machine, technology, technical apparatus, something non-human, basically. So this is from the Hobbes' Leviathan, all the interesting metaphors he uses to explain what is good governance, or what is a contract that will make society like peaceful and not kill each other. And in this, I'm inspired by this famous political theories from the 30s, Carl Schmitt, who interpreted Hobbes' Leviathan as exactly this idea of some form of a machine, of a mechanism, of an algorithmic governance. Basically, he uses even Campanella's, he describes Campanella's vision of a sun state, where it's a big ship without a rudder and sail, but driven by a mechanism that is commanded and guided by the possessor of absolute authority. So there is this idea of this non-human force that will make the society right in some way. So in Hobbes, the traditional way he describes this is that it's not it is authority, not truth, which makes the law. That Schmitt interprets basically nothing here is true, nothing here has some ideals or doubts, everything is a command. So usually people interpret this that it's about might over right, that if you have a power, you decide basically what is the law and right, and you have this control over the future. So I'm a bit different in this. I think it's not this. I think it's something even actually deeper, and this comes to the idea of Civitas Dei that I mentioned, which is fascinating idea in Saint Augustinus. It's one of the most important ideas in Western, culture, and we keep all our ideas of utopia are inspired by that. And it's basically a regional idea of governance by design, you can put it this way, or disruptive innovations that solves our human problems. It's connected. This is the type of terms that Augustinus uses when he talks about this future world, this eschatological, better city of God. It's definitely future. It's this futurum seculum, this future age. It's some new heaven and world. And the interesting thing, he does use the word design, which is novum concilium, actually, the word in Latin. And what does he think of this world? And this is something that always fascinates me about his description. It is a state. It is a world in which where no one is able to sin. So this idea of no one is able to sin no one is able to die, of course, and all these other things he imagines. It's, I think, at the base, actually, and it's more important than this idea that might makes right. And it is idea that goes from that Saint Augustine's Civitas Dei text all the way to these trustless, whatever consensus mechanism technologies. Basically, in technology, we embodied this old idea and old fascination we have with automation. So here is one of the interpretation by Saint Bernard, guy who is at the beginning of Inquisition. Basically, he says the highest form of freedom is not being able to sin. So it is exactly what Tao is about, consensus mechanism. Or here is like the poetic version of this from T.C. Eliot. They, men, constantly try to escape from darkness outside and within by dreaming of systems so perfect that no one will need to be good. So this is, I think, at the core of my problem with governance today and why I'm for participation. I find this some kind of ironic that our ideal of governance is that it will not be based on our decisions, that it will kind of be pre-arranged and pre-given by some automated systems that we don't even know who exactly designs, but it's someone with good intentions. So this is by Jonathan Sumption, a present like lawyer and a very important theorist of law and historian, who has this like a nice way of putting it, that what characterizes our present is that we have a lot of rights, but we are fascinated with the idea of curbing individual choices. And this he calls the supreme irony of modern life, that we want something that will dictate us how to behave, what is the perfect state, and what, you know, think of COVID, when you had the model that tells you exactly what to do. And many of us were troubled by that for all kinds of reasons. And I think it's a version of what Weber calls bureaucratic domination, or we can call it a technological domination in terms of these like new tools. It's a domination through knowledge, evidence-based policy, synthetic data, of course, all these like models that claim they will make these digital doubles and find out. And it is a form of some extreme control, actually, that annoys me about this. And again, it is an old problem. We can find it back in the 18th century, where this French liberal, André Morellet, was quarreling with the economists. They were called physiocrats, who also wanted evidence-based policy and governance. And what he tells them, your belief in power of evidence is actually apolitical, and it's trying to destroy the balance of power, the division of power, and these like governance mechanisms we have in society that create like a defined democratic society. And by this thing, you see, I am a classic liberal, like we still exist, and that's why my political agenda in this sense is very old-fashioned in some way. So where do I see the problem today in the present? It is in these type of proposals and ideas, such as this like California legislature, this new AI bill, SB whatever, that is trying to set up this AI operation agency, I forgot the name of it, that will make our models safe, but in the hands of the big corporations, because it's exactly what was the problem with the EU AI Act when we did this like agent rewriting of the act. It makes small developers responsible for how their tool will be used. Of course, there is a reason to have to demand some responsibility, but to make the developers absolutely responsible for the model, or demand from them very expensive ways to do assessment and all these like bureaucratic mechanism, is to kind of curb the development, and also to create some form of a regulatory capture, basically by the big players. In the EU, we have a similar idea with this EU AI office. It's not so extreme as the one in California, but what is the problem with these things? First of all, if they're soft, like the EU AI Act, they may end up like the GDPR. This is called risk-based approach to governance. And as you can see with the GDPR, this is like the results from last year, so I don't know how it's now, but from 800 cases filled in the last 5 years, in 2023, 59 had some success. 86 are waiting for decisions, and they found 60 procedural issues. What this means is everyone interprets the regulation in their own way, and it creates like this mess. Basically, it's better maybe not to have a regulation than a bad regulation that is not efficient. It's like it can be interpreted in many ways. And then I think the other approach, which is more like, let's create an FDA for algorithms, which is this California approach right now, is an approach we know very well that is failing also. It is the famous cases, of course, the Sackler family and all this opioid crisis. So the present pharma type of regulations that depends on this command and control approach of this agency that is kind of following and supposed to do oversight, but gets corrupted, it is a problem, because too much power of whoever you give it creates the issue. So what is my proposal to get out of this approaches? I believe in this experimental governance, where I imagine there should be sandboxes, or there should be like a test periods where the tool, whether it's a blockchain, AI, whatever, can be continuously maybe like tested, and people, different stakeholders can give feedback based on the negative experiences or some issues they see. So there should be some process of deliberation and negotiation. So there shouldn't, and this is what I claim, basically we need a space to politicize the algorithms, the technologies, not claim, hey, we have values, we don't even say which values, and we put it in the algorithm, everything will be solved. So I see a reason, and that's why I'm interested in the simulation as this open agonistic environments for experimenting and so on. What I hope to achieve by that is this, to take action, negotiate good enough rules without necessarily agreeing this is the absolute good, or these are some core beliefs or core identity we have to uphold. So it's a very like pragmatic approach. Here again, some inspiration how Jonathan Sumption puts it. I like this. It's a good rule, or good regulation is a regulation where minority would prefer, but the broadest possible range of people can live with. So it's not a win-win, but it's not lose-lose for polarized society. It is some middle ground, basically. And it is something in the STS field, science technology studies field, where I'm active. It is something we describe or use a concept from anthropology as trading zone or border crossing, which is often the model how science communities come up with like interesting discoveries or ideas. It is basically coordination and exchange of knowledge and resources between dissimilar and even antagonistic actors, in short. But it is something that would happen in a pirate colony where people would meet, the governance structure wasn't clear, even the language, they didn't use the same language. So how does this approach looks in practice? So I use this I needed an environment which will let people that are maybe not technologically savvy create their agent that represents them in some simulation or in some situation. So what I used is this GPT team fork, which is on the LangChain people. The LangChain framework is a framework where you can basically build application that use different models. So it's also good for research because you can test it on different models. So it's a LangChain framework application built by their team called GPT team. And I made a fork that kind of helps my agenda, which is more like discussion. Like the simulation they do is more like they're in different, it's like a little city or office they have, and they want to see how these agents behave. For me, it was more important that the agents talk together. So it's on GitHub, of course. This is the original project. So what are these agents? They are part of a world. These are different parts of the code, basically, and what are the functions and what happens there. They have a bio, directives, memories, and plans. This is classic thing for every agent. What the memories are is maybe the interesting part, because these are embeddings on top of the model, while the directives are basically how they define their action. So in the memory, so maybe this is a moment I'll just show how it looks like. So I need to do another, let's go here. Maybe I do screen. Okay, I'm on screen and I need to open a different application. I did rehearse, so it should work. On GitHub, I made a description for everyone to run this application and this Python script. And I'm a philosopher. If I can do it, I believe many people will be able to do it. So first of all, I will not go through all the code. I'll just go through the part which is easy to understand and where I engage stakeholders. So I do these workshops where I ask people, okay, what is an issue you want to resolve? For example, future of AI. This is something we worked on in Amsterdam in July. And I divide the people into groups that will define their stakeholder in that discussion. So then there is something, here is like a location. It's a bit small screen. So the location here is like a place where people discuss, place for public discussions, where citizens confront each other, blah, blah. And here are the agents. So in that particular case, there were 3 agents. Since it's about the future of AI, let me word wrap. So it's a future of AI. So we went for some extreme position. One extreme position was this like a Luddite or anarchist called Gaia. And you see the agent, it has a name, it has a private and public bio. Why? Because sometimes it creates an interesting contrast. It gives the agents a bit more some like depth or ambiguity. So, you know, the private bio can be a secret agenda of the agent. So here we made her super simple. She's simply anarchist, Luddite. She wants to destroy all AI. And then the directives are important because they define the actions and the priorities based on the script there when she starts communicating. She has an initial plan. And the stop conditions so far, I didn't completely figure out how that works. It never happens. The agents like kind of continue forever until there is some glitch and problem with the code and so on. Then here we have Gaia, then we have Sam. Of course, we made him a bit of a psychopath who wants a monopoly and regulatory capture. So that was a bit evil. And the third person is like some form of an AI mystic called Arcturia. So the whole prompts were more complex, but I made it now simple for our purpose. And what happens is I will first maybe, I'll try to reset the world because I'm not certain what happened in the previous. And then you have a simple command where you basically run the world defined by these agents. And I hope you'll see what happens. So it started, you see, it started generating and soon it will open basically in the browser a page so you can see how these agents discuss together. I'm running a bit out of time. I just want you to kind of get, because the problem will be clear once you see now how they're chatting together. So they're observing, there is some action in progress, where the action in progress is defined basically on the directive. So Arcturia, our mystic, she wants to make everyone excited about the possibility of non-human, oops, it disappeared, you see, of non-human future. And she's all about Mother Earth, embodying this AI consciousness, while Gaia is trying to destroy everything. She tells to Arcturia, your vision is a dangerous one, delusion, AI technology is a parasite, feeding off the lifeblood of our planet, you know, its energy consumption and all this, while Sama is trying to convince everyone that he should be in charge of the regulation and the development of the technology. And now they all let them chat forever. And I'll explain why, what was the plan and what actually is the problem, and I'll finish with that. So the plan was basically to let stakeholders define their agents, and then by watching what is happening in the simulation, the hypothesis is people will experience some form of catharsis. They will see the dead ends of the discussion, or they'll come up with some new ideas. It will be a bit like a theater experience. But of course, I don't still have a good research to design. My question now is what to do with these logs. Of course, one thing to do with the logs is what we do with all agent-to-agent simulations or some analysis. You can use ChatGPT, which I did. It's kind of interesting. This is from a different simulation where I made a doubles of ourselves in a discussion. It was about AI governance some couple of months ago, and I could kind of see who from which agent was speaking most of the time, and then ask questions why. We were also looking into how our discussion differs from the simulated discussion. I cannot say why. It was kind of interesting. I would use the logs, then say, do a summary of the logs, and then make some video or make images. The video is very cringy. I can show if you insist. I did audio play. That was maybe more interesting. So the logs, you hear them one after another. So it looks a bit like a dialogue. So I used 11 laps, and I'm still playing with this more like audio representation. So yeah, this is where I am. I'm kind of claiming this is some form of a quasi-public synthetic space in which we can preserve agency by discussing, deliberating about issues. I'm also saying this can be a public sandbox, not like the sandbox the EU AI Act and similar regulations want to make, but much more democratic, open space. Yeah. It's about connecting education, research, independent oversight. I see it also as a form of a ritual, which I'm kind of becoming curious about, because it's not clear, is it an object, is it a person? It's a bit like channeling. And this is my summary. While most of AI regulation and governance is all about this issue of trust, I'm not interested in trust. I don't trust any technology. I don't trust any government. I don't need like a strong trust. But what I do need is some form of an engagement and agency, ability, if I don't like something, to be able to say something or collaborate with other people and change it. So here I see that regulation should use maybe more prompts or beyond that level of customizing the outputs, interacting with the models. And what I'm looking for is this issue of catharsis or experience of catharsis into these probes of power, stakes, interest. So I see this like an environment that is good for politicizing prompts, using it as a tool of public imagination. I don't mind machine hallucination. It can be inspiring, actually. I see it as a theater. And that's my presentation. Sorry, it was a bit longer than I wanted.
No, it was awesome. Thank you so much, Denisa. Wow, what an awesome presentation. And I loved someone in the comments. I know you probably didn't get to see the comments popping off during your presentation, but a lot of cool reflections as you were going along. Ian says, this is a fascinating long view on some of the ideas that circulate in and around Metagov. So you're definitely in the right space, folks who have been thinking about experiments, play, and yeah, simulations, all that type of stuff. We, a lot of us have done, yeah, some cool experimenting. So I'm excited for this discussion. I have a stack that was loosely based off of the chat. I typed stack first, so I'm going to steal the first slot. But yeah, if I got this wrong, if you posted something and I missed it, just let me know. Steve, you'll be added to the bottom. I just saw your hand go up. So yeah, let's get into it with the 15 minutes we have left. I guess, Denisa, for me, yeah, I've done, Sent and I worked on a project called D20 governance that was in Discord, and we used yeah, like ChatGPT, but we sort of created an environment in Discord where communities can play around with different governance environments and like world build and playing with governance and using different kind of communication environments to alter what you might think of as like power in that space, like the ability to, you know, if for example you in our world, like if you were to type something that was like too extreme of emotions, for example, like it would like exacerbate it even more, or it could censor it if you like, were too extreme with your emotions. Or we kind of just created all these alternative environments. And I think like something that we struggled with doing that research and in that project was kind of like attaching, or kind of like then thinking back to sort of as fun as these environments are and as insightful and useful as they can become, like how do we then like, I guess, deliberately connect that to like use cases of AI in the world and show like yeah, through experience, but still like pointing to a way that we like propose a change of something that we're currently experiencing. So I'm curious if there is sort of a concrete like policy outcome that like does sort of translate across. Like, of course, it's all about the game, the process, the catharsis, like you said, and I totally agree with you. I guess I'm curious, like, how do you describe that like channel of communication with the like policy, mainstream like policy conversation happening right now?
So you probably know, but public consultation should be the place for engaging with the regulators and kind of enabling the voice of the public. But it doesn't work, of course, we all know and have experience with that. Why is it? I mean, I wish I knew the response. Like, even as someone who kind of entered the government with this idea, maybe I can change something if I join the professionals. They're so busy. They're not evil. They're just very busy. And it's the same problem. It's everywhere, because these people are evaluated by something. It's really difficult to go to bridge between different worlds where people are evaluated by different outputs and they're in their little worlds. And of course, I think we're kind of all victims then of something. So I'm pessimistic. I kind of think maybe the cool thing where I feel some limited success was actually with these agents, you can rewrite the regulations, so you can kind of adjust it to the format the regulator on the other side will take it seriously. Because if you just say, I don't like this regulation, blah, 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 they will not listen. But if you put it in that format they need in order to take it seriously, maybe it will work. So where I would like to see it is maybe in this professional public consultations moments, to enter with the agent, rewrite it, and it's a bit of a stretch, but yeah, I don't know.
Cool. Yeah, and also wanted to just add, folks were asking if you're willing to share your presentation links, and
yes, I'll share it now. I'll just copy the link.
thank you so much. Yeah, and GitHub links as well, please. Cool.
Yes.
Next up, we'll pass to Yanis. I saw you had a couple questions there, so the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Denise. Great presentation and great discussion also. More. My question is, how are you gonna be able to avoid kind of like an infinite analysis paralysis kind of situation, which of course you have both on the semantic level, but also on the syntactic as well. So ChatGPT, I don't think it will give you a way out. And I was also curious, a corollary to the ChatGPT is, do you plan to have actual humans having similar discourses as the automata you are creating? And can we correlate, can we compare the discourse breadth and depth of the AI generated discourse and the human generated discourse?
I hope I didn't hear you very well, Yanis, but I understood you're asking me about some form of a comparison of the outputs of the simulation and the real deliberation processes.
Yes, that was the corollary question. The original question is how you're going to avoid this analysis paralysis when we discuss regulation. Right, that was the original one. Yes, thank you.
So I was working with GPT-4 mainly. I'm kind of trying to play now and see how it works with Claude, and like something about, and this is what people do with these simulations. They kind of try to use different models or use one against the other. I'm actually going to a professional conference of agent-to-agent simulators to see what these guys are doing, to kind of see what can be done with these locks. I'm like, you know, that's why this presentation is so open, and I'm honest, like I don't, for me, it's fun to do it. I'm actually, what I think will happen is I'm probably will go more into the artistic direction. I want to see how this can work as some form of a public performance where people are engaged through creating the prompts, letting the agents fight other agents. So something more, more fun than, I'm skeptical it will change regulation, but maybe it's a form of a protest and disobedience. So there I see it more.
Cool. Awesome. Next up, we have Josh. You also had a couple questions. Floor is yours.
Hi, because we'll briefly come off mute or for the camera and say hi. But the I guess three connections that I might share. One, we have a project in Metagov called KOI, or I believe Knowledge Objects Infrastructure. It is effectively a LLM agent that is active in the Metagov Slack. And I would just say it would be really quite fun, I think, to try out some of these experiments inside our Slack, if that's something you'd be interested in, we're willing to share some of the code with and help us deploy. I think that'd be quite fun, as I think we've been thinking about how to enable the governance of these agents, or you know, discuss the governance of those agents. It'd be kind of fun to do that directly as part of that deployment. Second thing is, I know you were down on regulation, but one of the things that Metagov organizes is this larger movement around public AI, which is basically an attempt to get a bunch of governments to build their own AI models. More than that, it's kind of like this idea around AI as a kind of public infrastructure. Maybe we can build an AI like we build highways, like we build public utilities, like we build the internet in a way. This is a long-going process, but I just want to point that out. As part of this, actually, one of the things, one of the folks who have been approaching this from a more artistic side is a group called Serpentine. They're based in the UK. They have a gallery space. And they actually just had a series of showings around this idea of public AI. I just mentioned that because it might be a group you would be interested in getting in touch with. I'll just put it there. There's a few things to follow up if you might be offended.
Fantastic! All these activities sound something is happening. We are all excited about these agents. So yeah, it's worth of experimenting and kind of mapping the different practices and seeing where we can collaborate. I would love to. I'm interested in general in anything that that doesn't take governance as something, or their values, and we just have to embody it in the infrastructure. Something that's much more recursive or much more reflective, that enables more engagement and has these good enough goals.
Cool. Yeah, I'll add, like, Senda and I are current community leads at Metagov. And so after this seminar, it would be awesome to continue the discussion in Slack and discuss, like, maybe a potential sandbox that we can create with you, Denisa, using the KOI experiments that we're doing already in Slack. I feel like there could be a lot of potential overlap. And also, I'm taking notes, so can make a list of some of these partnerships. And I love to map different projects and out there in the space and facilitate introductions and stuff. So I will definitely.
Yeah, just to make one thing clear, like the word regulatory sandbox I'm using because it is something the regulators are excited about. For them, this is like regulatory innovation. So they want to see some form of a stakeholder engagement, but the way they understand it is, we'll just invite someone from the government and the people from the company or whatever, the technology, and maybe some other important people, but they tend to keep it close. And what I'm kind of pushing is, let's make it a bit more public. Why there are not people from the NGOs? Why there are not like motivated citizens that see what you're experimenting and working on? So you get a bit of more that type of public output. So the sandbox is just a term they use, but I think we should appropriate it in case we want some better governance, basically.
Totally. All right. We have only 6 minutes left. Ian, you posted a question. Please, the floor is yours.
Did I post a question, or I feel like I just commented? But I would say maybe more of a comment, but I'm very interested in this idea of like a public, kind of theater or interaction or sort of a performance. And it makes me think like I went to DEF CON last year, the big cybersecurity conference in Vegas, and the AI village there had this like red team challenge that was coordinated with the Office of Science and Technology Policy, which had written and published the like blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights in the US, but also then helped develop the executive order on AI. And that was this, like, it was a game, right? But it was a game that was very kind of set by certain normative rules and the ideas of what it meant to like try to hack or jailbreak or red team these things, that is very different, I think, than the kind of play that you're imagining. So I wonder what like a large, kind of public challenge or public engagement would look like with these kind of agents. I think particularly given some of the perspectives that they're espousing, that like might be things that you might see filtered out from a more like, government sponsored or kind of professional approach to these things.
I would love to see if there is any documentation, which I doubt because it's DEF CON. But
Yeah.
Like the idea we were working with Lorenzo is some form of we call it AI purgatory, like a place where you can be exposed to the evil bots and see what are your vulnerabilities, like some form of an arena where some fight happens, or you're upset about whatever Russian bots or any other issue you have with the world. So something like a fun environment where you can go. I think also Val kind of that experiment in the beginning she described has these qualities where you get exposed and you see your vulnerabilities. You let your agent, of course, fight other agents, and I don't know, this is the idea.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I sent a link. I'm actually connected to the group, the Humane Intelligence group. I think they were the ones that organized the DEF CON red teaming, and I went to their follow-up challenge here in New York a few weeks ago. They're doing a lot of like bounty hunt type of stuff. And yeah, I definitely think that's a great another organization to add to our web of potential partnership collaborations. They're doing really cool stuff there.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then I'm really curious about theater or ritual as format, where this like form of being experiencing some extreme states, and where you go to build some form of a public decision or public, you're forced to see tragedy, or you're dealing with you create some communal type of experience that I think creates bonds. So I don't know whether that's possible over these simulations, but I still didn't test that, but that's where I'm going.
Totally. All right, Steve, can you squeeze your question into a quick 2 minutes?
No, not at all. But I will say that I mean, yeah, it was just all too much. But I think that I do have a way to concretize a lot of your approach, and that I need help with a prototype to do exactly that.
Yeah, Steve, please send along your link. Have different stuff you're working on, but I would love to add it to our Slack thread after, as we kind of start to plan next steps. Because yeah, Denisa, like I mentioned, I feel like so much of us have all these different, we're in these different rabbit holes and stuff, so have lots of kind of similar but different projects or stuff that we've come across. So it's so nice to welcome you to the space. If you haven't, I know you're actually in the Metagov Slack already, so we'll continue conversation in a thread in the Metagov-seminar channel. Sent posted in the chat that they are, sorry, Senti posted in the chat that they're willing to hold space for another 10-20 minutes if anyone does want to stay in and continue discussion. Unfortunately, I'm not able to stay, so I will have to head out. But if you're interested, please stick around. I'll open up the channel in Metagov in the Slack, though, to continue async. But let's unmute and give our presenter a round of applause. Thank you so much, Anissa, for joining us. What an awesome presentation, everyone. Unmute and go for it.
Fantastic.
Cool. All right, I'm going to make Senti host and head out, but again, feel free to stay on. Thank you all.